Working a cappella is you can start in any key you like. Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
And now I'd like to welcome your candidate for South Carolina Democratic Party Chair, Brandon Upson.
Hey, how y'all doing? Hey, everybody. So I'm a little taller, just a little bit, but that was beautiful. Thank you so much. You know, my wife and her entire family are songbirds, and everyone else in my family are songbirds except for me. So I wish I could sing. But I wanted to just take a moment to thank all of you for being here. Got to thank my wife in her absence. She is home with the children. We have one with a cold, and I'm sure the other two will get it within next week. So she is holding down the fort while I'm ripping around the state. This morning I was in Rock Hill having a meeting with delegates. Then I drove over here to Anderson, and I'm about to go to Spartanburg next to talk to them before I have a meeting in Gaffney, before I go home to go to sleep, wake up, and do it all over again. I am committed to running a race that not only makes you proud, but guarantees a pathway to victory for everyone on this slate. So I gotta thank the folks who are on the slate with me, Mary Geren, who's running for first vice chair, Melina Rodelo, who's running for second vice chair, and Erica Sampson, who's running for third vice chair. She's down in Charleston, so let's give it up for her. So I want to introduce myself. I know I've been here to Anderson County a couple times. I've spoken to y'all. I remember last time I shared a story about my grandfather used to tell me about fishing and catching the fish and seeing somebody else next to us catching fish and the guy throwing it back. And afterwards, we asked him, why do you throw away all those fish? He said, well, at home, I only have an 8-inch frying pan, so I had to keep the ones that I could fry up in that small pan. And the moral of the story is, we have to get a bigger frying pan. We have to expand our thinking and our creativity when it comes to how we engage our communities. And it's time for us to expand and enlarge our big tent party. And that's why we're running to be the next leadership of the South Carolina Democratic Party. Like, I'm from Aiken, South Carolina, born and raised, second oldest of 6, oldest of 2 with my mother. My father was a little Rolling Stone. But in high school, I joined the Army, the Navy, ROTC. And during that time, I learned a lot about leadership. I learned a lot about following. I learned a lot about communicating with other folks. And I learned a lot about taking accountability for your actions and also for your own destiny. That gave me the foundation to which I joined the United States Army, well, Army National Guard, when I was only 17 years old. At the age of 17, I joined them because the Marines said no. and I was able to join, and at the age of 19, after my recruiter told my mom that I would not go to Iraq, my name was number one on the deployment list. And I went to Iraq as a 19-year-old boy, and I came home as a 21-year-old man. And while I was there, I served as a nuclear biological chemical specialist and reclassed in theater to be on a 3-man small kill team. And that journey from a 19-year-old boy who felt I had the responsibility to protect and defend my country, my family, to even lay down my life for my neighbor and those that I will never ever meet. Being there and holding security for their democratic elections, seeing folks willing to dip their finger in ink to vote and walk around with that marker that showed the insurgents that they participated in the democracy that they were trying to keep them away from, but yet they did it anyway. It gave me a new sense of purpose and some values that I came home with, and a mission that I knew when I came home I had to get my own family on track. I had to get my 10 uncles registered to vote because only one of them was registered at the time. I had to make sure my mom and my sister, went out and voted and got their friends to vote. And since coming back from Iraq at the age of 21, I have transitioned my service to my country from shooting, moving, and communicating in the Army fatigues to being boots on the ground in my community all over the state of South Carolina. Starting down in Charleston when I went there to go to the College of Charleston, where I met my wife, working with Joe Riley to get him reelected to the office of mayor. But while I was doing that campaign, I got a chance to see in a beautiful city like Charleston, people who feared for their lives because the conditions of their environment. Young people shooting each other. Young people going to bed hungry. Folks living in homes that literally from the outside look like it should be condemned and abandoned. But yet, they were the proudest folks that you could ever meet. They wanted more for themselves and wanted more for their communities. And because I felt like I had this new mission, I wanted to help them get more. So during that time, from 2011 to now, I have not only worked on nearly 40 Democratic campaigns across the country, but I've helped folks get elected in positions that people didn't think could win. Because of me being able to win long shot races, folks started calling me the political magician. Because when no one else thought you could do it, I would believe in you and believe in the pathway to victory and figure out a way to get from soup to nuts to victory. And we've done it over and over and over again. Since we started this campaign, we announced a couple days ago, and I knew that it wasn't going to be easy. Nothing worth having is going to be given to you. Nothing worth doing is going to be up the smooth side of the mountain. And my grandmother used to say, the mountain is rough because if it was smooth, no one could climb it. So I expected it to be a rough path up the mountain. But what I didn't expect was for the spaghetti of negativity to be thrown on the wall from day one. And that's one of the reasons why we're running this Forward Together Slate. Because if we're going to start winning as Democrats in South Carolina again, we're going to have to learn how to unite. If we're going to win in South Carolina again, we're going to have to learn how to fight the Republicans just as hard as we fight each other in these Democratic elections. There's no reason why we should be eating our own, fighting each other to the death, and tiptoeing to the general election against the Republicans. That is absolutely absurd. And my wife had to correct me from our meeting in Aiken because I said that is the definition of cognitive dissonance. And she said, no, baby, it's dissonance. Dissonance. But which it is. It is cognitive dissonance, right? Cognitive dissonance means that your actions don't match your values or what you said you believe in. If we are going to be a big tent party, we're going to have to open the doors and be welcoming to everyone. It is cognitive dissonance to pick and choose who can come into the door. And then if somebody comes in and doesn't say exactly what we want them to say or do exactly what we want them to do and then ostracize them, that's cognitive dissonance. If we are going to say we are the party for the working people, but then we're afraid to stand with organized labor and unions in this state, then that's cognitive dissonance as well. Because to lead people, you have to show people that you care first. And that empathy, that concern, that passion is what our slate represents. You know, I just named all the women who are running in this race with me. But I stand on the shoulders of strong women who showed me the way, showed me how to value that instinct that women have, and gave me the fire to fight for women's rights all across this country. I started an organization called Amplify Action. We were focused on engaging young black men. And in 8 months, we registered over 30,000 young black men. And then turned around and figured out we had also registered over 60,000 black women. That was only in 2020. But since then, we've not only registered over 200,000 young African Americans, but we mobilized over 1 million of them to go out and vote across the South. Now that takes organizing. That takes getting on the ground, not being afraid to talk to someone, and showing them that you can be trusted and that you care for them. And as Democrats, we are losing the messaging battle. We're allowing the Republicans to define us. They're calling us losers. They're calling us baby killers. They're calling us sinful vagrants. And we have no answer for them. When we become the leadership of the South Carolina Democratic Party, we're going to change that. And this is how. We're going to invest in a dynamic communications department that does focus groups, that reaches deep into the party itself and pulls out people like a Lee Turner who has a specialty in communications. We have folks that come to South Carolina from all over the country with experience and networks and skills that we need to be taking advantage of, but we're not doing it. You may have come here to retire, but you're not done contributing. So why not tap into that and use it for the benefit of the whole? You know, we also need to strengthen our county parties. There's no reason why a county like Anderson, your amazing juggernaut of a county party, you may be, you know, in the blue portion of the Red Sea, but y'all are organizing and doing it. And you have developed best practices that we need to share all across the state. And not only should we share your best practices, but our state party should invest in you. There's no reason why we should give money to Richland County, Greenville County, Charleston County, and not give to our smaller rural counties, because every county matters and we should be fighting for every single vote. And then we talk about what happened last year when we saw a record low turnout for African American voters here in South Carolina. The lowest turnout that we've seen in a generation. And we ask ourselves why. What upsets me is when we have a debrief and our county parties are blamed for that low turnout. When we have a debrief and everyone is blamed except for the source. And the source is we had no plan. We had no coordinated campaign to reach down into our neighborhoods and our precincts to turn out the vote. We have to get on the ground, rebuild our grassroots infrastructure, and campaign just like we did in '08 with President Obama. Every block, every precinct, every neighborhood, every town, every village, every corner of the state, because if we don't do it, we'll continue to lose. Since 2021, we've lost over 60 Democratic incumbents across this state. In 2021 alone, we lost over 30 local municipal Democratic incumbents. And we haven't answered the question of why and what we're going to do about it. We have to be real with ourselves. And as we campaign across this state, I'm not going to sugarcoat it, y'all. Because when you're looking for leadership, you should be looking for leadership that will be honest with you and tell you exactly what it is. Tell you exactly what we're facing, but not only tell you about the hard things that we're facing, but give you a plan for how we're going to move forward. And our state party doesn't have a long-term strategic plan that goes beyond any of our noses. And that is something else that we want to bring when we become leaders. The last thing I'll say, because it's not all bad, y'all. I promise you, it's not all bad. When I was growing up, and Mary's shared this story about her being in the Big Tent revivals. My grandfather was a pastor of a church in God in Christ. And every summer, we would travel around and do the revival circuit, right? And one thing I learned there is, no matter how far you go in the wrong direction, no matter how many times you fall down, you can always get back up. You can always win again. But first, you got to commit to it, come together, and move. Take that step of faith in the right direction. And we're asking y'all to join us. Take that faith, rekindle that hope, come together with us in unity so we can move this state party forward. So I'm asking you, as my other members of the slate come up here, to be open-minded, to share our message with your network and your friends, because we are not just going to win this election, but we're going to win this for the state of South Carolina and for all of our futures. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Get on the road.
I know. I have to get on the road, and I have 10 minutes before I have to go. And we haven't done this in any of the other stops. And I do want to ask if I can take this 10 minutes to take questions from y'all. Please, anybody? Yes.
Hey, I heard your remark about county parties being blamed, and I'm going to go on to the county party.
How you doing, Ms. Jody? Thank you for being
here. One of
here.
the things that I want to explore is parties typically tells the county party, your role is to get out the Democratic vote. The candidates tell us parties in the rural areas, you have to help me get out the persuadable vote and candidate vote and Democratic vote. What's your impression of that? And I'd just like to see what you think.
Yes, ma'am. So like I said, I've worked on over 40 Democratic campaigns across the country. I've done races in at least a dozen states now, and particularly in Georgia and North Carolina. And what I've learned from working in both of our neighboring states is there's continuous 365 candidate recruitment and candidate training. One of the pitfalls that I see over and over and over again, because I'll have candidates every single year here in South Carolina calling me and saying, I was expecting this. I'm not getting that. Can you help me with this? Who am I supposed to talk to get that? We need to have that candidate training on a regular occurring basis. So when you are thinking about becoming a candidate, you understand the responsibility of your county party and you understand the responsibility of your state party. We don't just have to educate voters, but we have to educate our candidates as well. And then if we're going to tell our county parties, Jody, you are responsible for turning out the base, the Democratic voters, we got to sit down with you and say, let's work out a plan for how we're going to do that. And then if you say, well, that's going to cost us $20,000, let's work out a plan, Jody, on how we're going to raise that $20,000, right? Because you should not have to bear that burden as a county alone. There should be a working relationship between our county parties and our state party. Yes, you deserve autonomy. Yes, you have it as a county party, but that doesn't exclude us from our responsibility to you. And we shouldn't set you up in that fashion for candidates not to understand the difference and be expecting something from you that you are not supposed to be doing. I hope I answered your question. And let me know if I didn't, Jody. Okay. Any other questions?
I don't have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
My name is Andrea Harvin.
Yes, ma'am.
I just like that you're surrounding yourself with women.
I've been outnumbered my whole life. Yes, ma'am.
How do you plan on incorporating Latinos and Latinas in your
in the party? That's part of the Big Tent. Big tent, the definition of a big tent means everyone is welcome. And not only are we opening the door, but we're going out and getting people to come through the door, right? So when it comes to our Hispanic and Latinx communities across this state, that community makes up 6% of our electorate, but it makes up less than 1% of the vote. Why is that? I believe that the things you water will grow. Meaning, if you invest in reaching out to our Hispanic and Latino votes, you're going to get it. If you don't invest in it, you're not going to get it. Our slate is a historic slate because of Melina on her own. When we win and Melina becomes the second vice chair of the South Carolina Democratic Party, she'll be the very first Latina or Hispanic in our state party's history to ever serve in our state's leadership. All right. So we start there. We start by walking the walk before we even talk the talk. And having somebody in leadership at the table with authority and being able to chart our path is the first step forward. Cool? Thank you. Anybody else? I'll take one more. Yes, ma'am.
What's your plan for engaging young people? So people who have full-time jobs, maybe not retired yet, still have to go to work. What's your plan for engaging them in the process?
Yeah. So here's the thing. Some of y'all may not know this. I actually chair the South Carolina Democratic Party's Black Caucus. So when I became chair of the Black Caucus, we had a 50-member group. That's all we had. And that was the email list. It was only about 10 showing up to the meetings. Since I became chair, over 900 people have signed up to become part of the South Carolina Democratic Party's Black Caucus. More than half of them are under the age of 45. And this is what we've done. Not only have we embraced young folks and their thoughts and their ideas on how to bring others to the table, but we've gone out and I see Jason back here. We've even gone to day parties. We've gone to block parties, we've gone to the club, and we are evangelizing in all of these places and telling people about what we're doing and why they should be a part of it. Literally, there's a young group of folks who only care about reparations. So what do? We didn't say, no, that's not a popular topic in our party or in the country. We said, well, what can we do to help you? They said, well, we need to get some training on how to organize around that. We said, let's do it. So we hosted the training. About 20 people showed up the first day, about 13 people or 11 people the second day. But what did they do? I went in and saw that all of them signed up to be members of the caucus, but they brought about 40 more young people into the caucus as well. That is just a microcosm of what we need to do for our state party. We have to go after the young vote and embrace it at the same time. And I know Erica Sampson is doing that work now. She will be our third vice chair, and we're going to empower her to amplify that entire program.
How old is Erica?
Erica is in her young 30s.
You're in your 30s too,
I just turned 37.
Yeah.
And the last thing I will say, because I wanted to address this before anybody else, threw the spaghetti on the wall. There has been folks saying that I get Republicans elected. Here's the thing. Yes, I win elections. I win a whole lot of elections, actually. And I'm proud to say it, But I am not in the business of unseating Democrats with Republicans. There was one guy in Charleston named Joe Boykin who was brought to me for assistance because the Democrat in the seat was no longer serving the community that she was elected to serve. 2 of the former Charleston County Democratic Party chairs, the former political director of the South Carolina Democratic Party, and the Sea Islands Democratic Club, to which he was a member. He's also a member of the Progressive Club that was started by Esau Jenkins, a civil rights legend down in Charleston. They all asked me to help him in 2018. I did. Then he turned around and decided he lost, turned around and decided he wanted to run again. He was thinking about running as an independent. So I helped him start a website, and then I left. I took my hands off of it because I was helping a Democrat, Millicent Middleton, run for that seat in that primary. After she lost, I stayed out of it. But now my opposition is trying to say I have built a reputation and a career on getting Republicans elected. I haven't seen this type of attack even on McMaster during the gubernatorial race. We were silent going against the Republican, and now we're throwing daggers at our own. This is a perfect example of what we need to change in our South Carolina Democratic Party. And if you give us your support, we're going to change it. And not only are we going to change it, but we're going to start winning again. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Now we're going to hear speeches from some supporters. So I'm first going to have Miss Beard come up. Miss